Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Harvey Wasserman. Who is Harvey Wasserman? He is an American journalist, author, democracy activist, and advocate for renewable energy. And he's going to tell us a little bit as well of Solartopia. But before, Harvey, welcome aboard to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today, my friend?
It's great to be with you, man. Really great.
Hey, listen, let me tell you something. Let's get our audience acquainted with who you are, first of all, and then, because you've never been on Politics Done Right before. So you are at, everybody here knows that I'm on KPFT 90.1 FM here in Houston, a Pacifica Network station. You are where again?
I'm on 90.7 FM in Los Angeles.
And what's your
KPFK. I do the California Solartopia show. I also have the Green Power and Wellness show on the Progressive Radio Network out of New York.
So you're popular. You're all over the place, man. So we know that you used to write a whole lot of articles for the, I guess it was, you did a few for the New York Times, and I think a few for what's that rag? That rag that turned into sort of a real popular rag now.
You mean Huffington?
Huffington Post.
Yeah. And I've been writing since the 1960s. So it's just a long career, and everything's changed. And but we're barely hanging in there, but we are.
You know what? It's so funny, Harvey. You said everything changed, but it's amazing how, as things change, some things just kind of repeat themselves or stay the same, isn't it?
That's true. So right now, that piece is at Reader-Supported News. About Woodrow Wilson. And, it's funny, I'm a historian. I've written 3 histories of the United States. I got a new one we'll talk about eventually called The People's Spiral of U.S. History. But in all these years I've been writing, and we mentioned the pandemic. There was a pandemic. That's what this article was about at Reader-Supported News. And there was
Hold on a second, Harvey, because I want to introduce that article appropriately.
Please.
I got an email from a friend of ours that says, Egberto, you have got to see this. Harvey wrote an article titled How the Woodrow Wilson Influenza of 1918 and the Trump virus pandemic of 2020 Brought Fascism to America. I got the article and I reposted it on egbertowillis.com. And as I'm reading the article, I'm like, this is one of the best representations of the failure and the dereliction of duty of our president. So now you take it from there, because you did a hell of a job with that, better than what I saw in Politico and other rags.
Well, thank you. So Donald Trump could have prevented this pandemic if he had acted just 2 weeks earlier. About 80,000 people would not be dead, and about $10 trillion worth of economic damage would not have happened. It's all on him. I mean, they were warned. He dismantled the Obama preventive mechanisms. He didn't want to rattle the stock market, and so people are dying left and right, all over the place. And he has wrecked our economy, and it's all on him.
It's all. I think that is something that we have to stress constantly. In other words, it's not the China virus or the pandemic that put the world's economy in decline, because the truth of the matter is other economies are, while they decline some, are still doing fine because they have a good social safety net. They also take care of their people. They are not seeing the 20% unemployment or 30% that we're going to see next month. So here's the deal. You did a very important contrast in that article that I want you to discuss, and that has to do with Woodrow Wilson and Donald Trump and similar effects.
Right. Well, people are saying Donald Trump is the worst president in the history of the United States. He's not. Woodrow Wilson was the worst. Because Woodrow Wilson got us into World War I, which most of the people in the United States did not want to get into. It was a complete horrible waste, and then of life, of money, of everything. And in the middle of it, there was an epidemic of flu that broke out in southeastern Kansas, where apparently a virus passed from a pig to a farmer, and then the farmer was enlisted in the military, and he went to this base. It's called Fort Riley now, and there were 50,000 recruits there. Now, why were there 50,000 recruits? Because Woodrow Wilson demanded that we get into this war, and the Public Health Service was warned about this influenza outbreak. And then, if they had been not preoccupied with war, they would have gone in and quarantined this little corner of southeastern Kansas and there would have been some deaths, but the virus wouldn't have spread. And instead, this one guy brings the virus to this camp, and then the whole military network, there were soldiers being shuttled all over the country on trains. They spread the virus like crazy all over the country. And 650,000 Americans died because Woodrow Wilson got us into this war, ignored the virus in southeastern Kansas, and then had a military network that spread you could not have designed a better mechanism for spreading a pandemic than what they had with getting ready for war in 1918. And so Woodrow Wilson, literally on him, totally on him, just like this virus epidemic is on Trump, the pandemic of 1918, which killed 50 million people worldwide, was entirely on Woodrow Wilson. Totally.
Now here's something, because you talk about, well, actually it's Woodrow Wilson being the worst president, but the Trump is not over yet.
No,
there's something that we are seeing with Trump that is almost walking into the same footsteps of Woodrow Wilson. You wrote in your piece where apparently Woodrow Wilson wanted to sell bonds or something like that.
Yes.
So he brought a crowd of 50,000 people together because he wanted his wishes done. Now, here's the deal. Donald Trump is trying to get this economy more open, and he's talking about filling the stadiums again, and he's talking about wanting to do his rallies. So maybe you may be a bit premature to still say that El Señor,
yes, you're right.
That Mr. Woodrow Wilson is the worst. We don't know all the damage that can be done in the next 6 months, granted?
Granted, absolutely, and God forbid he gets a second term. I'm not sure the human race will survive a second term of Donald Trump. I mean, he has been destroying the environment as fast as he possibly can. He's lifted all the restrictions on air and water pollution. He's killing renewable energy. He's doing everything he can to destroy the earth. And if he gets the second term, it would have been nice if the Democrats had actually nominated somebody to run against him. But, we don't see Joe Biden. He's completely invisible. There's been no opposition to Trump. And so Trump is running wild. And they are doing everything they can, Egberto, to subvert the upcoming election. And so we're working really hard on vote by mail, which is a reasonable alternative to having people standing in lines.
Let me stop you right there real quick, Harvey. This is important because there has been some consternation about vote by mail between those of us who really think that's our only option, and somebody like Greg Palast who is saying, oh, hold on a second. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's tremendous problems with vote by mail. But there are problems. It's like what Winston Churchill said about democracy. He said democracy is the worst form of government ever invented, except for all the other ones. And so
yes.
It's the same with vote by mail. Tremendous problems with vote by mail. And I have a piece coming out, and we do a weekly a meeting on vote by mail, which is going to be this coming Tuesday. And
I'll be there.
Welcome to join us. And then it's every Monday, but this is Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend. So, there are about 20 major problems with vote by mail that we need to overcome. But the point is, the previous elections, we've had 117,000 voting places, and in each voting place, the election board can find a way to steal the election. So at least with vote by mail, we've got kind of a unified thing, and the key is it's on paper. That's the number one thing about vote by mail. You get paper ballots, and they can be counted.
Traceability.
Yes, absolutely. It's a world of difference. We've been lobbying for paper ballots for a long time. This is a gateway into paper ballots. Now, these Republican legislatures are doing everything they can to sabotage vote by mail. And, it's ironic. Trump is complaining that if we go to vote by mail, there'll never be another Republican elected. Well, the first vote by mail election that we've had since he said that was run by a Republican in California, for God's sake. So vote by mail is the way we're going to have to go, but it's everybody listening, you got to be a poll worker. You got to focus on your local election board and make sure it's done right. It's not that complicated. There are a lot of things they can do to subvert it, but vote by mail is definitely workable if people keep their eyes open and get involved. And we have, less than 6 months now till the election. And Egberto, it's really not a national election that we have here.
Right.
It's an election in 6 states, and then maybe 6 more, and then maybe 6 after that. Maximum 18 states are going to decide the election, and most likely it'll be 6. And so in these swing states, people really got to work and focus on protecting vote by mail. That's the key.
I agree wholeheartedly. Now I'm getting a little bit more positive with the Democratic, with how Democrats are running. I saw an ad today put out by Jimmy, I don't remember his name right now, about for the Senate, Senator Lindsey, and how they really are starting to put some meat. You know, Democrats have been sort of tepid in the way they normally fight battles. They're starting to put some teeth into it. But there's one concern that I have. There's an article that came out, I think, in Politico or one of these other rags that said that there's $20 million that Republicans are investing in sending these right-wingers to be poll watchers with guns, etc. Right?
Right.
I want to see Democrats not say, oh, that's such a bad thing. They're trying to scare our people. I want to see Democrats come out and say, well, you're coming there with a gun. We'll be coming with a bazooka to guard you with a gun.
Right.
I want us to not, when I say us, I'm talking Democrats. I want Democrats to not cower to say, oh, please help us because there's somebody that's going to come and watch our polls with a gun. We say, if you come with a gun, we're coming with a bazooka.
Well, if they're going to have 50,000, we have to have 500,000. That's the way it's got to be. But one thing is, Egberto, the polls themselves will not be the real, people coming out to vote in person will not be the major focus of this upcoming election. That's why they're so scared of vote by mail. So what's happening is these Republican legislatures in the key states are putting all sorts of restrictions. You got to have a witness, you got to have 2 witnesses, you got to have a notary, the signatures got to match this and that.
Right.
And then they will subvert the mailing of the ballots, and they'll mail them later. They'll have mistakes on them. And we have to be right in their face on every one of these details.
Well,
we have to make sure that the vote by mail is done right, and that we know what's the volunteers on this democracy side have to know every detail of what's happening in these polling stations.
Harvey, and that is why what you're doing right now is so important. That's why what we're doing is so important, because it's not only important for us to. It's good enough that it's not good enough that Harvey knows this stuff. Okay, Harvey got to be able to get out there and make sure that other people, because this you would think would be making massive news on all the stations that are supposed to be liberal, right? It's not.
Right.
These issues are not. And that is why we have to invest into making sure that we use the alternative media to get this stuff out, which what you're doing right now, perfectly. What you're doing with the calls that you have weekly, perfect. We've got to expand that and move that out, in my humble opinion.
Right. And we don't have much time.
Right.
So everybody listening in, you've got to go to your local polling station. You got to get it. You got to make sure that you're part of the vote count, that you're there on the day of the election, that the ballots get out properly, that they're properly printed. I got into this because I was living in Columbus, Ohio in 2004. I've been an activist since the 1960s, but this was not an issue that occurred to me, election protection. And we watched my buddy Bob Fitrakis, who's a political scientist, and we watched him steal the election of 2004 in 100 different ways. And we've been monitoring it ever since. And that's why I'm supportive of vote by mail, because it's so much simpler and because it allows people to, we know all the different things they can do. When you got 117,000 voting stations, they can do 117,000 different things. Here they can only do about 20 to really subvert it. And we have no excuse. People need to be in there. They need to join the election board. They need to be poll watchers or poll workers. They need to be part of the vote count. So when these clowns show up with the AK-47s, we're there, there's one of them, but there's 10 of us. And we say, no, you're not going to do this. And that's how it's got to be. And we got no excuses here. We know who Donald Trump is. I wish we knew who Joe Biden was, but that's how it is. And, we just got to push ahead here. And there's no surprises and there's no excuses.
Absolutely, Harvey. Okay, Harvey, before we close here, tell us a little bit about Solartopia.
Well, Solartopia is a vision of a green-powered Earth. It means that we know, again, how to save our Earth. And one of the big things, we got to go vegan, because meat production is destroying the earth. We got to go 100% renewable energy. We got to recycle everything, but more importantly, we got to manufacture stuff that's not wasteful. We got to clean up our air and water. And one of the other things that we're doing, there's big debate about population. The only reliable way to have population growth slow down and population drop is to empower women.
Exactly.
Women need to be in control of their own bodies. They need to have access to education, access to reproductive freedom, equal income, and power. There's an article that's circulating. It was in the New York Times. The countries that have handled the virus epidemic the best are all run by women. Germany, yeah. New Zealand, it's like across the board. So you and I got to say, our gender, the biggest failure in human history is male domination. I agree. We're going to have to step aside. And you know what? My wife said I could say that. So,
you know what is so funny? The good thing about that is I've been preaching about women taking over for a long time. I've said we've had our chances and we failed. Okay.
Yes. And Donald Trump is the ultimate failure of the male lunatic. Give me a break.
I am with you, Harvey. So Harvey Wasserman, American journalist, author, democracy activist, and advocate for renewable energy and much more. Thank you so kindly for being a part of Politics Done Right. You will be back again, and we'll continue to really push that progressive message to make positive change, brother.
And you come to our seminars, our meetings on election protection, and we will keep going, brother. Keep at it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.